All right, I'm going silent. Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania coming to you live. My special feature guest today is none other than a multi-award winning filmmaker from Nigeria. And let's make sure I get his surname correct because we didn't have a chance to talk ahead of time. But before I say that, my apologies to my viewing audience. We did have a late scheduling conflict and we've sorted it out now. So we're running a bit later. I know a lot of people had to take off because they were waiting for this, but hopefully you can catch it after the fact. But let me welcome, let's make sure I get the pronunciation correct, David Akwara. Did I get it right?
Yeah, we try.
Okay, good. Excellent. So, David, welcome to the program. We know each other from LinkedIn, and I saw that you have a film coming out on a topic near and dear to my heart, one which I consider myself a realist about. There's a lot of people running around Africa very excited about this, and while I'm excited, I also try to make sure that people are fully informed about it. But tell me a little bit about this film on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But before you do that, let's go back. Can you tell folks a little bit about yourself? How did you get into filmmaking? How long you've been doing this, and that sort of thing?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for pronouncing my name right.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I was supposed to be a lawyer, right?
Oh no, you can't do that. Those people aren't trustworthy. No, just kidding.
I was supposed to train as a lawyer, and I got into a small drama group to be there to learn how to use words correctly, to build my vocabulary, and that's how I stumbled into film. I came back from that group, telling my father that, you know what, I want to study film. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to tell stories. Because the reason why I wanted to be a lawyer was because I love advocacy. I wanted to advocate. Really, I wanted to use my legal power to just advocate for people. And I see that, with film, I'll be able to do that. So that's how, I got
We've got no connection with David there. We've lost him. His connection's not very strong, apparently. Let me just, so we're not just stuck on that. Sorry about that, folks. Looks like, David, are you still there? If you could turn the video off for a moment, it would cut down the data usage if you can hear me. Just turn the video off. Looks like we don't have him there. My apologies, folks. It is the continent, and data isn't always, the bandwidth isn't always there. Looks like he dropped off. If he comes back on and we have the problem again, what I'll do is I'll ask him to turn the video off. My apologies for that. And then I'll upload a photograph of him, so at least you've got that. We've had this problem before, particularly in Nigeria, where I've had people calling from Nigeria. Difficult to get them in sometimes. So let me see if I can get, if I've got his photo here real quick. I know I do, because actually I'll just put up the banner. It's just the easiest way. Good morning, folks. Megan, Sally, welcome to you. Thanks for tuning in. My guest is having some problems with his bandwidth. We're starting a bit later because we had some scheduling conflicts late in the game. But, yeah, so my apologies for that. Let me see if I can't just fix this in the meantime by bringing an image. And that way I've got that up. So let's do this here. Anyway, how's everyone doing today? I'm a bit knackered now. I went to bed very late making videos about James Tiberius Kirk going to space. Captain Kirk in space. Last night, Prince William decided to rain all over his parade. So where's this at? There it is. Okay, got it there. Okay. All right. So, all right. Are you there, David? Can you hear me? Boy, even with your camera off, it's a bad connection. I can. You're still breaking up. Yeah, it sounds like a serious bandwidth problem there. Well, he's not in South Africa, so we know it's not load shedding. Although Nigeria does have power problems of its own. No, I can't hear you. Yeah, it's all garbled coming in. I don't know if you can hear me. Folks, we're trying to get David Akwara on from Nigeria. There he is, but the data is really, really poor. David, I don't think it's going to work with your video on. Can you just turn the video off, and then you might have enough bandwidth just for the audio?
Wow.
Okay. You should be able. You should be able to turn the. You should be able to turn the camera off at the bottom there. Yep. You should be able to turn the camera off at the bottom of the screen. You just stop video.
But I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, but but your video it's taking too much of your bandwidth. Okay, so I've got an image of you up. Okay,
I'm trying. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, well, I can't hear you clearly. It's breaking up, but I can hear you better now. So I think we can continue. But just leave the video off. It's unfortunate, but it looks like your bandwidth is not sufficient right now. So you can hear me correct? Yes. David, you can hear me? And now he can't hear me. Well, my apologies, folks, but unfortunately, this is the challenge of technology sometimes. The infrastructure is not always there, and it's just the nature of things. I've had the misfortune of having these bandwidth challenges of my own on the other side of the country when I was in...
Is it better now?
Not really. I heard you for a moment. Now you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I can hear you now. All right.
Is it better?
Yes, now it is. It is better. I don't know if you moved towards a window or something or closer to a router, but I can hear you better now. All right. So, David, we were starting to have you tell us a bit about yourself. You were supposed to be a lawyer, and then you got involved in some theater.
So I can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm reminding my audience now because people have come and gone while we had trouble with the image. You were supposed to train as a lawyer, and you got involved in some acting, I think you said, and then that's kind of where the story got broken up because the network. So if you could pick up the story from there.
Okay. So when I started,
we can't hear you, David. Just
the drama, to improve my vocabulary. What's wrong today?
It's the network. It's not enough. We're just getting broken up stuff.
I mean, the network has been great. What's wrong with the network today? I'm surprised.
Yeah. Well, what I'd suggest is this. Why don't we try to reschedule because maybe there's a better time to do it because people really can't hear you right now and it's difficult to do the interview. Can we try to we'll reschedule it? How's that?
Okay, I wanted to switch lines. I mean,
okay. Well, if you can try that very quickly, we'll be patient. We'll be patient.
Know if...
We'll wait for you patiently while you try that and see if that works. Okay. All right, folks. My guest David Akwara is going to try to switch networks. I suspect he's over a mobile network, and that might be part of the problem here. It can be very challenging when you're doing this over a mobile network unless you have 5G. And then not every provider that says they have 5G actually delivers 5G. No, I can't hear you. Just like that's what it sounds like. So that's not any better if you've switched. So even if you have 5G networks, sometimes providers don't actually provide you with a 5G, even though they say they do. So I don't know. That might be part of the issue here, but it's clearly a bandwidth problem. Oops, there we go. Let's turn that off. All right, so we lost David there. Folks, my apologies. Let me go ahead and tell David we'll reschedule. Let me get over there and send him a note. Hang on a second. I got to get back to here. We left this. Okay. All right. So anyway, well, folks, hey, listen, thank you for tuning in. You don't have to run off, though. We could chat for a few minutes now. I'm dressed up for a party and no place to go here. So thanks for tuning in. It is Thursday, the 14th of October, and I'll start some consulting services today for the U.S. Army War College, which will keep me busy. So my normal Indaba Africa News of the Day will be a live stream during my lunch hour, whenever that will be, later this morning or early this afternoon. So look for an unannounced live stream coming up on Chris Wyatt Africa. Last year, when I was doing these consulting things and in the spring, we had good audiences. We would get 50 to 100 people show up for that. I suspect that's not going to be the case now because of load shedding and also the Putu shadow banning. And I think also some people just lost interest in YouTube, or they've gone back to work and just don't have the time, especially in the afternoon or early evening, to spend time on YouTube. So all that's had an impact, a deleterious impact on people's ability to gain audiences. Honestly, though, with all the load shedding that's been going on in South Africa, I think we've done pretty well in our audiences this past week. A lot of people couldn't get on because they lost power, but we still managed to have between 50 and 80, sometimes 100 people on the program for the streams. So fingers crossed, and hopefully we can keep that up. But so that's coming up. Anyway, folks. So the news today, I'll cover a little bit later on. I'll check and see what the headlines are and take a look at it. But I won't be putting up the screen. I'll just be able to discuss it on the phone because, of course, I won't have a PC. I'll be using my mobile phone for that stream. So, hey, Janet, good morning to you. Ken Aronson, Rainier Dutoy, Megan Sally, hello. Peter Bauman, Roy Hayes, Teresa Hayes. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And my sincere apologies. We had a scheduling conflict. We sorted that out. And now we have a bandwidth issue on his end. He said he could hear me fine, but of course, as you all saw, we couldn't hear him at all. It's definitely not on this end. I've got more bandwidth than you can shake a William Shatner launch to space with. Speaking of which, folks, check out my videos on that if you don't mind. I think you'll enjoy those videos. I did some videos yesterday about the launch. We had, I put 3 up last night. I did a 10-minute one, which I condensed all the key moments that I thought were key moments of the build up to the launch, the actual launch, and then coming back down with William Shatner going to space and suborbital flight yesterday. And then I did another one in which I really just highlighted about 3 minutes or so of the actual launch, which is really cool. And then the landing. Boy, those main chutes coming open and on that NS-18 capsule coming down, that was incredible. And so that's there as well. And then finally, last night, Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge, decided to rain all over William Shatner's parade by whining about, we shouldn't be spending time putting people in space looking for a new home. We need to fix and repair the planet. Listen, I'm a conservationist, brother. I've been doing it since before you were born. Since before Diana Spencer knocked boots with your father and then started knocking boots with her Arab boyfriend. Long before that happened, I was a conservation and a good steward of this planet. I don't need your little yippity-snappity 30-year-old arrogant, elitist, polo-playing, privileged, aircraft-flying pilot arrogance to tell me that we don't need to look space. We do need to look space. Space has been a major source of medical innovation, scientific advancement, and more advanced about knowledge of ourselves and the environment we live in our solar system and our galaxy. So it's absolutely critical that we do things in space. And this is a private enterprise. He's like, we should have our best scientists, devoted. We spend more money on social welfare and we spend more money on technological advancement than we'd ever have spent in the space program, dwarfing it by a factor of many. So, it's his money. If he wants to do it, let him do it. And that's his business. I'm not a billionaire that can afford to fly on a Blue Origin's flight to space. But what I can say is that, hey, Mario, what I can say is that I don't begrudge people who have the resources to get in that capsule and fly up there and reach suborbital flight. Nothing against it. It's interesting that Prince William chose now to speak out against this when he said nothing when Richard Branson and his little flying playboy, egotistical, self-aggrandizement, little spiffy suborbital jet went into space. He didn't have anything to say about that. He didn't have anything to say, because it's British, when South Africa's Elon Musk, a member of the Commonwealth, put SpaceX up and they've flown a bunch of flights, putting humans in space. No complaints about that. But now when William Shatner goes up, he wants to rain in our parade. Now, to be fair, Shatner's Canadian, that's part of the Commonwealth, but most people think he's American. Probably the Duke thinks he's American too. So I guess that's why he shat all over Shatner. Anyway, so yeah, my apologies, folks. My guest had bandwidth problems. We're going to reschedule it. We couldn't really pull it off. We'll get it to work. So I'm looking forward to that stream, but we'll have to try it again later on. Anyway, so Prince William craps all over the Shatner, and really disappointing. Very, very disappointing. Why rain on our parade? A lot of us are very excited to see Captain Kirk go into space, or depending on your view, it wasn't Captain Kirk, it was Denny Crane. But whatever the case is, really, really ashamed to see that these arrogant, privileged royals, elites, who think they rule the world. Well, apparently they do, we've discovered, but who think they rule the world, just trying to rain on our parade. Nothing to say about Branson's, egotistical nonsense. Nothing to say about Elon Musk, who I don't think is anywhere near as egotistical. Musk has done some amazing things. But now when Shatner goes up, he's got something to say. Yeah. So Branson's a Brit, Commonwealth. Branson's a Brit. Musk is from South Africa originally. It's in the Commonwealth. And Jeff Bezos is from America. So maybe that's why Prince William feels it's appropriate for him to shat all over our joy. But anyway, so yeah, often have a breakup problem here in Cape Town. Was bad with Jack Miller review. That's on your end, Ken. But I mean, you can always watch it later, or you can let the data load while if you have a data breakup, and then you put it on pause and let it load. But I can't conduct a live interview with a signal that doesn't come through, so it just doesn't work. So my apologies for David. We'll get you back on. I was really excited about doing this morning, so don't sweat it. We'll sort it out. And we'll get it together. Yeah, no worries about Teresa. We had to reschedule, scheduling conflict. We sorted that out. And then David's data connection was atrocious. I'm not sure why. So we will get him back on. Hey, Paulie. So we'll get him back on at a later time. But now I'm all dressed up and no place to go. I was supposed to have done this interview an hour and a half ago. And then we tried for 8 o'clock my time. And I've got to go to the War College here in about an hour and a half. So rather than just hang up and go away, I'm just going to say hey to everybody. And listen, I will do a stream later today for the Stray Voltage Indaba Africa News, but it'll be a little bit different. It'll be like it was in April this year, and then in October of last year when I did the same thing. I did my live streams from my mobile in my car, and so I'll be doing that. Thank goodness I have over 1,000 subscribers. If you don't have 1,000 subscribers, you can't stream from your mobile device. So when we were under 1,000 with this new channel, that was my desire. It wasn't about monetization. It was about being able to do live streams from my mobile. So that was important. Anyway, yeah. So Ken, that's the thing. If I can't get the signal, then there's no successful recording. If my viewers have bandwidth issues, that's unfortunate. But it's beyond your control, it's beyond my control. But you can always catch the recording later on, which is nice. But again, I have to have people be able to come in. Paulie, how you doing? Good to see you there. Let me take a look at where we're at here real quick. So we got a dozen people here. Thanks for tuning in, folks. My apologies. We were supposed to be listening to David Akwara right now, a multi-award-winning filmmaker from Nigeria, but his bandwidth was just terrible. Let me check in on him and see what's going on. Okay. What's wow? He said to me, wow. So I said, what's wow? Anyway, yeah. So David, if you're listening, we're going to get you on because I was very excited about this. David posted on his channel, on his LinkedIn profile. I told him I was excited to have him on the thing, and he said something about, well, you're part of this, and I'm curious about that. How am I part of it? Just because I cover Africa, or did he come across something I said, or did he include in it? So not sure what's going on there. Good to see we're at 4.5K. Well, it's going to be a long trip there, Paulie. I looked. I've spent 1 month to get 100 subscribers. I used to get that in 3 minutes in the past. Yeah, so it's going to take a while. No, Ken, I didn't take it as a blame. And hopefully David's not taking it as a blame. I'm not blaming him because his response on LinkedIn says, wow, I don't know what that's about. It's the bandwidth. But I mean, okay, you guys couldn't hear him, right? I mean, it wasn't just me. It was like someone talking through a culvert, a tin pipe, and it just didn't work. We tried it without the video, wasn't any better. So, yeah, no, I didn't take it, Ken. No, you're misinterpreting. I didn't take it as blame. I'm just explaining that those are beyond our control. But the good news is that if it's a clear recording, which Jack was, I downloaded, I edited a few things in that interview with Jack. Didn't take any content out. I just took out the beginning of the video because I start the recording when I do a Zoom session before anyone starts talking. And so, I had like 10 minutes. Then Jack and I are discussing a few things for when air. That's nobody's business. That's just us coordinating for the interview. So I take about 15 minutes out. Clip that out. Also, I had to, clip a couple times out. Like I would turn my mic off and I'm not careful and I hit it too hard like this. And then you get that bump right there. So David's watching me. So he's able to get the data to watch me, but we couldn't talk. Isn't that ironic? David is right now watching us on YouTube. David, thank you for being there. Yeah, it's the vagaries of technology, folks. And yeah, I'm kind of bummed. Like I said, we had a scheduling conflict. There's some confusion this morning, so we rescheduled for 8 o'clock. And then we had David on there for a moment, and we were all ready to go. And he started telling his story, and it all went to crap. So, let me hang on a second. Hang on. So, want to try again? Am I writing to him now? We'll try again. What I don't want to do is string people along here, so I'm not trying to do that. But what will happen is if David can come up now, we can do the interview. Then what I'll do is after this is done, of course, I save this recording. I'll edit it and I'll reload this interview separately. And I'll change the banner on this and put up FUBAR. It was a FUBAR broadcast. We'll put another one. So he says he's changed his internet. We're communicating over LinkedIn. Also, I violated my cardinal rule with this with David is that, and maybe if I hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had confusion. All right, so call back in. Okay, call. So, yeah, my cardinal rule is I don't take guests unless I have their phone number and an email so I can reach out to them instantly. Usually so I can get them on WhatsApp or Telegram, but usually WhatsApp. But I don't have that for David, and I never asked because I was so busy with all this other stuff going on. It's the same with Jack Miller. I don't have his number, but it worked out okay with Jack. So let me see if David's coming back in. Anyway, folks, so hang tight. We might have David up here in a moment, but it's going to be a shorter interview because I can't stay that long. Okay, he's coming back. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's try this again. We've lost 2/3 of our audience. All right, so he's coming up, connecting to audio. Okay, now he's got to turn his phone again because it's not in landscape mode. I can hear him fine now. Oops, his camera went off, but that's probably because it's locked again. I think the aspect ratio is locked. So, all right. There we go. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's get to it. This will be an abbreviated interview, but I'll go as long as I can before I have to cut. And what I'll do is we'll probably bring David back on again in the future to talk about some other things. But ladies and gentlemen, multiple award-winning film director from Nigeria, David Akwara, is joining us now. Looks like he may have overcome some technology issues there. I don't know if he's got an MTN problem or it's another carrier, but I did see that shirt there. You're rocking an awesome looking shirt there, David. Can you stand up or pull back? Yeah, there. Look at that. I love that. That is awesome, man. I got to get me one of those. I love that shirt. All right, so David, before we got cut off unfairly by the tech gods when they cut off our connection there, you had started to tell your story about how you got into filmmaking. Originally, you said that you were intended to be a lawyer, but you changed your path. And can you pick up the story from that point?
Yeah, when I started, doing dramas, I realized that I can tell a lot of stories, right? I tell a lot of stories, and I can be voices for other people. So I told my father that I would do film. He wasn't really happy with the decision, but he has always trusted his children to know what is right. I mean, so he gave me his blessings, and then I started studying film. It's painful that now that it's now getting better. I mean, people are not seeing the value of what I'm doing. He passed, Yeah, so that's how I got into film, and yeah, that's been. And then again, I also want to mention that studying film in Accra, Ghana, opened me up to Africa. I mean, that's the first place I met a lot of Africans. So I realized that we are just one people. We're just living in different geographical space. So that built a Pan-African consciousness in me, and it now reflects in the works that I do.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Let me ask you this question very quickly, David, because, of course, Ghana is well known for Kwame Nkrumah, who was very much the original Pan-Africanist. He's the person that pushed for Pan-Africanism. And that vision never really came to any fruition, although a lot of people seem to think the African Union is that. It really isn't. I've worked at the African Union. Nothing against the African Union, nothing in favor, just being honest about it. It's not exactly the vision that Kwame Nkrumah had. And not advocating for or against what he had. But your being in Ghana, is that perhaps one of the reasons you were influenced about the interest in Pan-Africanism, because of the influence and the history of Ghana, the Black Star Republic, and the concept of Pan-Africanism?
Okay, I think that, first, the influence that with my father. My father traveled Africa, and he particularly loved Ghana. I don't know for what reason. So as a child, I was hearing Ghana. My father always it was a. I'm sure that the Ghana government should give him money for good PRO. So as a child, I have Ghana in my mind. So when it was time to go to school, Ghana was the first place I thought about. And then coming to the city itself and how how they accommodate me as a foreigner and treated me as one of them, and then reading about Kwame Nkrumah, I think from my father to going to school in Ghana instilled that that Pan-Africanism in me, or arose the Pan-Africanism in me. And I'm sure that it's there before I even traveled.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, of course, in Ghana, one of the words that you hear often is akwaba, which means welcome.
Yeah,
and,
welcome. Yeah.
Yes, and Ghanaians, by and large, welcome pretty much anybody. As long as you're a decent person, they're happy to see you. They're very welcoming people. So let me ask you this. We'll get away from the filming for a second because this is something I love to talk about when I don't get a chance to talk about Ghana very often. What did you think? What did you think of the music scene there in Accra? Well, every time I've been to Accra, the music scene is hopping. Some of the best music. It's just amazing. A lot of good artists there in Ghana.
I think I lost something.
No, I said that whenever I go to Ghana, one of the things I really like about Accra is the music scene. It's really hopping. I said, did you enjoy the music scene? Did you find it interesting? I found some of the best music in West Africa I really found in Accra. Great musicians.
Yeah, I think I particularly picked interest in Efia and Sakode. Those are two artists that I really love because, they talk about the reality, right? They speak to, and I like the mixture of their sound. I like my Nigerian music, though. I have to prove that. Yeah, I like my Nigerian music, but I love theirs because you could see the deep cultural value that they have. They speak the local languages. It's just beautiful to just hear the different sound. I mean, for me, Accra feels like Africa.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It really does. It's got that vibe about it. It definitely feels like it's not the heart of Africa, but Malawi takes that distinction. It calls itself the warm heart of Africa. But I have to say that Bunmi Adesanya just subscribed. Thank you for that. But yeah, Accra definitely has that feel about it. For a long time, I was a bit biased against West Africa. The only place I really enjoyed was Ghana, but I hadn't been to much West Africa. And then I was in Liberia where I rebuilt the army. And after being in Liberia, I started to soften on West Africa, and I had seen lots of Nigerians outside of Africa, but I dealt with a lot more Nigerians when I was in Liberia. And I don't know, being around Nigerians in Liberia and being in Sierra Leone and Guinea and and Cote d'Ivoire, I started to like West Africa a lot more. Interesting place. But let me ask you this, because Nigeria is a big country, 208 million people. It's a huge country, a kaleidoscope of different ethnicities, religions, faiths, languages. So for our audience that doesn't know you, is not familiar with Nigeria, can you tell us, are you Yoruba? Are you Igbo? Are you Twi? What's your ethnic background? Just people might be curious.
Oh, okay, so I am Urobo.
Okay.
We are found in the southern part of Nigeria, Delta State to be precise. I'm sure that a couple of people would have heard about Warri. Mm-hmm. Warri, it's a very popular city in Nigeria, and that's where I grew up, and that's where this project started from. This Pan-African project that we're doing on the moment started from Warri, my hometown.
The project we're talking about, let's get to that now before we lose your bandwidth again. And that's you've made a film about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, a topic which I've spent a lot of time writing and speaking about the last couple of years. What's the inspiration for this? And is the film released yet? Is it available? Can we watch it? And if so, where might people find it?
Okay, first, give a background to why I decided to do the project. I had privilege to really travel around Africa in my pursuit for knowledge. And, when you travel around Africa and you see what's going on, the poverty, the structure deficits, I'm always moved because I feel like we deserve more. So when I heard about the Continental Free Trade area, I saw that as a dream come true, as an opportunity for us to move to financial independence. Remember, Kwame Nkrumah said, in one of his speech, that a country is not truly free until it's economically free. Mm. And the challenges that we as a continent is having is that we don't have economic independence. And we have 1.3 billion people. They thought about, having a market that 1.3 billion people would do business together. It's mind blowing. I know that my children, right, if this thing goes well, my children would not seek dual citizenship outside Africa because we would have all we need. I mean, people already know that, we are blessed with a lot of natural resources, rather, and that in itself has the ability to move us to where we should be competing with other, other continents. So that in itself was the driving force that, I have an opportunity to be part of something that is great. I have an opportunity to contribute to Africans' financial independence. That's why, our film has a title, The Rise, a journey to Africa's financial independence. We believe that with the aspiration that the agreement has, it has the ability, not for the elite per se, the SMEs, which is our focus, small, medium businesses, people in the informal sector that has 70%, in terms of trade in Africa, they occupy 70%. If this 70% Africans are moved from where they are to the next level financially, I think that the agreement has spoken to millions of Africans. It shows that, we can be economically free. So as regards the release of the film, we intend to have an event attached to the release. That's why, the film is now available for everybody to see. I like to tell people that, The Rise is a conversation starter. It's a conversation starter. So we are using it to start conversation to follow up all that is happening in the continent as regards trade. So, for example, this first episode speaks to the introduction of the agreement, what the aspirations are. So when you watch the film, this episode, you would have hope in Africa. You see that, man, things can get better because of the angle that we took the story from. And then we want to have panel session talk about specific issues that some of the SMEs raised during the interview. For example, border challenges, single currency. Let us have conversation and see that the film would actually lead us to solving certain problems, because we want to have both stakeholders in the policy level, SMEs, come together and really talk about where we are and what are the actionable steps that we have to take in terms of the implementation of this agreement that has the capacity to lead Africa to financial independence.
Well, so let me make sure I understand this correctly now. I thought it was a standalone film, but it sounds like a series of films or a mini series. So you'll have different episodes. Do you have a vision on how many there will be, or are you just continuing them as you go?
No, I have a vision of how it will be, right? But in terms of the different stories, some would unfold. For example, we now have 6 regions, 5 in the continent and 1. And the diaspora, we put the diaspora into a single episode. The idea for the diaspora part of this series is that we want them to see that Africa is investment worthy. We want them to come back home to invest in Africa with their knowledge, with their resources, and together let's basically.
Looks like we lost them again. Look like we've lost David again, folks. My apologies for that. Let me bring this up in the meantime. So my guest is David Akwara, who's a multi-award-winning Nigerian filmmaker. We're talking about his film, The Rise, which is about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And it looks like his data, his bandwidth has acted up again. So he was just telling us that it's actually not a film as such, but a series of films, or if I could say a mini-series as such, each focusing on different regions and one on the diaspora. While hopefully he tries to get his connection restored there. One of the challenges, of course, Ghana famously had the year of the return recently. He's dropped off. Recently had the year of the return, which is a clever marketing scheme to try to encourage people in the so-called diaspora to invest in Africa, come to Ghana, although most people aren't descended from people from Ghana that are outside in the diaspora. But the point was to get people to come back. And it was a clever marketing thing. It was rather smart. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the diaspora don't really seem to have much interest in putting their resources in Africa. But that doesn't mean Africa shouldn't try to get people to put the money there. It's certainly a lot of opportunity in Africa, a lot of risk in some places, but a lot of reward. It can pay off quite well on your investment. So that's one of the challenges out there. Now, if we're able to get David back, we'll talk more about this. But one of the things I want to talk about, he mentioned a single currency. And then integration of Africa's economies. But one thing's definitely the case, and this is something I've been telling people for a long time, and I'm trying to convince American businesses this who seem to be tone deaf to this reality. There are 1.3 billion people in Africa, and contrary to the image of 1985 with Live Aid, they aren't all emaciated, starving Ethiopians. They are people, many of whom who have disposable income. At least 300 million people in Africa with disposable income, what I would call middle class, that have money that once they meet their basic needs, they can do something else. Now, they might have thousands of dollars. They might have a few dollars. It just depends. But the reality is that we're going to try and get him back here now. But the reality is that if you have disposable income, then you can be a consumer. You can purchase things. And that's the massive potential that Africa offers to investors and to people who are trying to get into the marketplace. David's Nigerian network provider is not very friendly, so we're doing our best. Well, he's got a whole rack full of awesome-looking clothing behind him there. Look at that. We get a different view. I think he's moved to a different room to try to get a better signal there. David, I was just telling people that you started mentioning single currency, and then I mentioned the diaspora episode, and I talked about Ghana's year of the return and their effort as a marketing to get people to invest. And it's challenging, but Africa offers a lot of tremendous potential. The image of Africa that many people in the developed world have is starving Ethiopians in 1985 from Live Aid, and that's not Africa. That's a dated view, and people need to understand that. Especially if the African Free Trade Agreement is successful to any degree, it opens up a market with 1.3 trillion consumers. And right now, about 300 million of which have disposable income. Once they meet their basic needs, they have money to spend on televisions and refrigerators and ironing boards and iPads and nice expensive food and things like that. So people have disposable income. And this is a burgeoning market. This is one of the things I've been pushing for American businesses to not ignore Africa, because in 2050, Africa will have 2.3 to 2.5 billion people. And that's even taking into account people leaving the continent. And that means that there will be a consumer class of nearly 1 billion people continent-wide. Yeah. And anybody that ignores that potential market will find themselves a second-rate or third-rate economic player when we get to that stage. So that's kind of where I was at. Now that we've got you back, a little bit better bandwidth there. Any comments on what I just said? Is that something you discovered in your filmmaking for this film, or have you come across what I just said, or do people say something completely different?
No, but I think you're correct. I mean, everything that you said, I mean, I agree. I agree. I think this should challenge, Africans, especially the leaders of Africa. This is the image. We have a very negative image, and I think that they have the capacity, to turn this around. And we now have something that can aid us, and that's the African Continental Free Trade Area. If they implement it properly, the image of Africa will change, because Africa will be a place for development, a place people. Of course, you mentioned about.
We've lost him again. I suspect we're not going to be able to continue, folks. But David's trying admirably to get back in. So let me continue the story a little bit, and hopefully we'll get him back. Hey, Spicy Meatball, Red Robin, Janet. Janet's off to work. I missed that. Beth Fraser's here. Yeah, so I was mentioning that. Now, this is something I hope to get into if we'd had the bandwidth. And I don't think we're going to be able to pull this off today. And so maybe it's a discussion for later with David. But of course, while I'm optimistic about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, I'm also realistic about it. The agreement is agreement only. There are no enforcement mechanisms to punish bad actors. For instance, South Africa has implemented protectionism. They now will only purchase cement from domestic producers of cement in South Africa. So that means they're violating Southern African Development Community trade rules inside one regional economic community, and they're violating the African Continental Free Trade Agreement already. Who will punish South Africa? Will they be brought to some sort of tribunal or board? No, there's no such mechanism that exists currently for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So when a country implements protectionism to protect its economy against its neighbors, now, of course, this is being done really to protect South Africa's cement producers from China and Pakistan, where the cement's coming in from. But the point here is that other people can produce it in Africa and in Southern Africa, and now they can't sell it to the government of South Africa for government projects. That's protectionism. What do you do? What do you do when Kenya shuts down its border for produce from Uganda, which it's done? Members of the East African Community and the Intergovernmental Agency for Development, both those regional communities, and they shut the border down. They wouldn't let maize come in from Uganda because it was harming the price and sale of Kenyan maize. That's protectionism. The Continental Free Trade Agreement is supposed to be free trade, free movement of people, goods, and services across borders. Sort of the vision that was for the European Economic Community, which later became the European Union. So those are challenges. That doesn't mean the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is not worth our time. It's not worth pursuing. But people do need, I think, in my view, to have open eyes, because a lot of people are looking at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement with this starry vision. Oh, look, now we have 1.3 billion people united. Well, that's not exactly the case. It could become the case, and hopefully it can become the case. That would make Africa an incredibly strong trading bloc. But there are all kinds of barriers, infrastructure barriers, informal barriers, like I just mentioned, like protectionism, and ways that governments with tariffs and import duties can prevent goods from getting a foothold in neighboring markets. And another problem, of course, which we have, now this is sort of tied to colonialism, but not entirely. It's also tied to the realities of environment and location. But many African countries produce the same goods as their neighbors. And so, I mean, if you want gold and you're in Mali and you want it in Niger, you don't have to trade with Mali. There's gold in Niger. If you want plantains in Cameroon, you don't have to trade with Nigeria because you have plantains there. Cocoa in Ghana, cocoa in Ivory Coast. Both countries have cocoa. Unless one country can't produce enough, there's no real need to import it. So you really need to differentiate your economy. And that's a real challenge when you have 54 countries around the continent. David's going to try to get back in now. All right, let's see what happens. This is the data connection from Hades today. So we're trying again. He's back where he started. All right, he's smiling. Well, David, when every time you get dropped off, I'm just telling people about the trade agreement and its potential, but also throwing a dose of reality out there that people shouldn't look at it from my perspective as the ultimate solution. It can be, but you require enforcement and you need players to act well. South Africa has just implemented a rule which says that only domestic cement producers can sell cement to the government on state-owned enterprises. That's protectionism. And one of the shortcomings with the trade agreement that we've seen so far is that there's no enforcement mechanism. If a player misbehaves like South Africa is doing, because by doing that, that means that producers of cement in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, and Botswana can't ship it to South Africa and for contracts with the government. And that's not fair. That's protecting their market. So the Continental Free Trade Agreement envisions free movement of people, services, and goods. And there's no mechanism to punish South Africa for doing that. No tribunal, no board to meet. That's one shortcoming. But that doesn't mean that the agreement's not worthwhile or worth pursuing. It's definitely worth pursuing. But we just have to, in my view, do it with open eyes. Now, would you agree with what I said, or have you seen that doing research for your film? Has anyone talked about that topic? You're on mute right now.
Yeah, I've not seen that yet, but or I've not followed up. I heard about it. These are one of the things that, because Southern Africa is the next phase for our series. That's what we're looking at, entering, finding out what's the level of implementation. But that has not been decided yet. That's when I heard about what you just said. Mm-hmm. I think that we should first see these as an African thing, mm-hmm. Trade as an African thing, right? Not just a country-based thing. So whatever agreement that we're having, it should be able to accommodate our brothers. Mm-hmm. The same way we want to accommodate our brothers from other countries. So I think that everybody at the policy level should not just create policy that would just favor their country. I like the fact that we are now having legislation that addresses the country should start using what we produce. I saw that in Kenya too, when one of the leadership in the Kenyan government said, we are not going to import a military uniform from outside Africa. We're going to produce it in Kenya, and our people are going to make the uniform from cotton to textile to the final, right? But I don't see these things thriving if every country locks their what I'm trying to find the right word for it, but basically not giving a welcome hand to to other nationalities that would want to come do business.
Yeah, I think that maybe what you're getting at is protectionism or that and foreign direct investment, the two of them. Because foreign direct investment could be Nigerian investment in Kenya. But if you block your market out, then you're not really achieving what the goal is. Oh, you're on mute again. Your phone's on mute.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting for you to, when you're done. I think that part of the reason why we're having network each is because I'm not muting.
No, that's not it. Just leave it on. It's fine. That's your bandwidth is just insufficient. That's the issue today. Your video is also a little jerky, but at least we've got you on there. Yeah, no, it's a noble idea, but the challenge with the Kenyans saying they're going to build it is that, or not build it, they're going to make the military uniforms, is that their textile industry isn't efficient. It isn't productive, and it costs more for them to make the similar products that, unfortunately, they can import from China. It's ironic. When I was training the Malawi Defense Force for peacekeeping in the Congo, we ordered uniforms for them and pistol belts and all the military equipment, not weapons, but all the uniforms and the things you use like tents and stuff. All of that's manufactured in America, and we were spending American tax dollars for it. But when the goods arrived in Malawi and I went to the warehouse to inspect them, every single U.S. military uniform, every pistol belt, every canteen cover, every tent, every sleeping bag was made in China. Why are we importing Chinese stuff to Malawi that Americans are paying for? If we're going to import it, then we ought to be sending American stuff because we paid for it, but we didn't even do that. It just shows you the challenges. And the reason they went to China is because they got twice as much stuff at the same quality for what we were paying in America. And that's a challenge Africa has because China is a colossus when it comes to manufacturing. So it's a real challenge. But I think the point you're making is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that countries shouldn't be excluding other African countries from their marketplace because it's detrimental to the development of Africa. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, you don't have to do everything. Your country doesn't have to do everything. I was telling my friends, it will make sense to have a Gambian man handle road construction in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. It will make a lot of sense rather than have people from outside the continent do this business. And then speaking to China, max producing almost the same quality for cheaper price. I think that if our billionaires, right, get into the manufacturing industry, they will do well. They will be able to compete head on. So the billions of nairas that our billionaires have, let's push it towards setting up manufacturing companies from producing from cotton. Are you there? From cotton to textile, right? We can see. I don't know. I have an overwhelming belief that there's nothing that they are doing elsewhere in the world that we can't do here.
No, I got you. But one of the things that frustrates me,
there's nothing that we can't do here.
Well, I agree with that. There isn't anything you can't do in Africa. But one of the things that frustrates me with African leaders is that everyone seems to be focused on becoming manufacturing nations. Yes, there's need for manufacturing in Africa, certainly a lot more of it. But in my view, that's not the future. The future is the digital economy. It's ideas, it's software, it's medical research, it's pharmaceuticals, it's all those things. That's where the high profit margins are. That's where the high paying jobs are. And Africans can produce those things and make a fortune off them potentially. Years ago, about 20 years ago in Ghana, I was there on a trip and I went to several businesses that were receiving data from America and Ghanaians because they're very proficient in English because they speak English. They were transcribing insurance claims. That was all done manually. Now they've used computers to do that, but that employed a large number of people. And I think that in some respects, a lot of Africans who are focused, like the ANC in South Africa wants to put 1 million people on farms. I think that's insane. The direction in agriculture worldwide is mechanization and fewer employment and more productivity. productivity, and they want to go the opposite direction, back to the Middle Ages. And I think Africans, while manufacturing is important, there ought to be a big focus on IT and the sciences, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And that's a place where Africans can really make a big hit, because you can leapfrog. You can really leapfrog the economic development and get to the next, past the Industrial Revolution, the digital age.
No, but again, why I kind of support, the whole industrialization idea. I'm looking at the population at large. We have we have a high rate of unemployment in Africa. I also know that, IT is good. I mean, we can even see some things that some Africans are doing in terms of IT. I saw Paystack and how much, it was bought, right? I think that, like Kwame Nkrumah said, and Thomas Sankara, we should be able to produce what we eat, what we wear. That's the basic. We should be able to build our own houses, build our own roads. I feel like charity should begin really at home, like taking responsibility for the things that we use, the everyday things that we use. Doesn't make sense. See, I don't know, for the last 5 years, I always wear made in Africa. Mm-hmm. Because in my head, if I buy a fabric that is made in Nigeria or any African country, I have injected money into the economy, their section of the economy. If I give these clothes to a tailor, a fashion designer to make, I have injected money directly to that fashion designer. Other than ordering jeans, polo, long t-shirt, that the money doesn't even go into my economy. Mm-hmm. So I think that, we should really invest in in manufacturing, especially manufacturing the things that we use. I was heartbroken today when I found out that, some countries in Africa are still importing plastic plates. Plastic plate, what we used to eat, we're importing it from China. It doesn't make sense.
No.
So why can't government make policy that even banned importation of these things and cause our manufacturing companies to start working? That would give a lot of job to a part of the population that are not IT inclined. Mm-hmm. Because when we move to the digital economy, we will have a lot of African losers from this, because not so many of us, are there. Even the network that we're talking with, we're even having issues for stable, internet. So I think that we should go back to the basic. We should be able to feed ourselves. We should be able to build our own habits. We should be able to manufacture the things that we wear. The primary things that we use, we should be able to do them here. And from there, we could, we would build. I was mentioning to some of my IT guys, you guys should start thinking of how to ease payment solutions across Africa. You guys also start thinking of how to ease borders. We don't have to use manual way. I mean, there should be digital way to confirm that my goods is made in Africa, so it can go through to another country as a made in African goods. There has to be IT solution in all these areas. Mm-hmm. But you see that part of producing what we eat and what we wear and what we use, it should be done here. We shouldn't be looking, outside. So that's my thought, and that's one of the reasons why I agree with, some of the African leaders that talk about industrialization. That's my view, really.
No, absolutely. Well, it's not just Africans in the digital age that get left behind. I mean, plenty of people in the developed world get left behind the digital age too. So we don't want everyone getting the impression that the Japanese and the Americans and the Irish are all running around hooked up to the digital age and profiting from it. No, it's a small segment of society that benefits from that. But society as a whole generates a lot of wealth and a lot of opportunity. I mean, look at this. We're doing this Zoom session despite the IT challenges. We're still doing this. You're in Nigeria. I'm here in the States. All of that's made possible by the minds of someone who focused on that sort of thing and created a whole new economy. So, some Africans will benefit from that. But my point is that I think in their policy, they need to also focus on developing that sector as well. And it ought to be comprehensive, maritime, agriculture, not just one thing. You talked about something earlier when you were getting cut off one of the first times, and you sort of went towards it. And I don't know if you're going to go this direction, but let me bring it up. One of the challenges in Africa that is not recognized is that Africa's economy is actually much larger than the world knows. And that's because in some countries, as much as 70% of economic activity is informal sector, which isn't taxed, which isn't regulated, which isn't governed, which isn't captured in economic statistics by the International Monetary Fund, the African Development Bank, the World Bank. This data is not there. People make estimates, but in countries like Benin or in Liberia, as much as $7 out of $10 is spent informally, which the government never captures the data on. So many countries have far larger economies than people realize. And the challenge, I think, going forward is for African leaders to capture that. Now, there'll be resistance to it. I mean, if you sell, scratch cards on the street corner, you don't want to be taxed. That's going to cut into your profit. So, but the point is that that's a real economy. It's there, and it keeps hundreds of millions of people alive every day. And going forward, in your filmmaking, have you had a chance to look at the informal sector? And if so, have you learned anything? If not, will you be looking at it?
So I'm sure when we look forward to sharing the movie. If the informal sector is a priority sector for us, because we also understand the numbers that they have, and if the informal sector is overlooked, they will lose out from the agreement. So I have met farmers, do it in small scale. I've met different people doing, different things in small scale. And I'm thinking in my head, how can they upscale? Really, how can they even grow? Because most of them that are in the informal sector, they don't grow beyond that level, right?
Yes.
How does the agreement speak to that? And I'm glad that if you look through the AfCFTA agreement, you see that it made provision for the informal sector. Yeah, it made a lot of provision for the informal sector, and also helping them to get into helping them to formalize, right? So that, because really we can't just stay in the informal sector, right? There have to be some kind of formality, and some tax needs to also be paid. Mm-hmm. If we want the development that we are craving for. So the informal sector, the SMEs, the MSMEs, they are priorities to us. We are using our film to bring out their pain and challenges where they are. That woman in the village in Accra, that woman in the village in Cote d'Ivoire, how can they access, for example, credit facility to upscale? Can we have like a collaboration between bigger company and this informal sector? I'll give an example. So can we get seedling to grow rice for get farmers who have 5 plots to grow rice, and then we have a company that will add value to it, right? So what they do is to grow the rice and they get directly paid, and the next company add value to it. That way, there's not steady flow of income to that farmer. And we're also encouraging, those farmers to start talking to their children who are enlightened, to help them with handling, digital technology, so that over time, when there's a parable that when an elephant walks past a bush path for so long, there will be a road. So there's a continuous flow of money into the informal sector. It will be easy for them to, formalize, easy for them to even aspire to say, okay, I started with 5 plots, now I have 10 plots. I have 50 plots. In no time, they will not grow to become, companies that can now start adding value. But if we do not pay attention to, to the informal sector, they will just remain there using whatever they earn to just survive. We don't want people to survive. We want people to grow. We want the economy to grow. We don't want to just hear that, the SMEs or the informal sector contribute 70% to the trading in Africa and ends there. No, we want to see that, they are growing systematically. I started here, and that's one of the things that our company is passionate about, to follow through the growth. We don't want this to just be a big idea that is in paper. We want to see this happen actually. So we want to use film as a tool to follow the action and make it so entertaining that you can watch it. I mean, when some people saw the trailer, somebody said that I thought it was just going on, and boom, it ended. That's the idea. And we're also creating functional content, like 2 minutes, that addresses specific issues. So if you do not understand the rules of origin, for example, that content will teach you on how the rules of origin works. So we're going to touch out different issues and different part of the agreement that need to be explained in those 2 minutes videos. But you really cannot find those videos in the main court, right? Because we also don't want the main court to be so explanatory and then become boring. So if you want idea, we'll give you our website, and then you can go for free for now to access these content, that would help you to move and make the most out of this agreement. So again, SMEs, informal sector, MSMEs is our main focus. That's what we're advocating for, and that's what our film is about. And we are open to the big corporation in terms of collaborating with these SMEs to see them grow. We don't want to have only elites make the most out of the agreement. We want to have people who are disadvantaged. I mean, women, especially women. We want them to grow. We want to have women billionaires. When we think of African billionaires, women should be there too. We want to have the population, the young population, the youth take part in this to make farming attractive to them to do it, to see farming as something that they can do, to see developing technologies. I mean, new technologies like you mentioned that that would not, like, for example, I like to use the man who created Zoom. He's making a lot of money as we are doing this, right? Creating solutions that you don't really need to move. It's not mobile, but a solution that the whole of first African can use, and then the rest of the world can benefit. And in the end, we'll have an Africa that is competing with other world economy as one. We're trying to be one now. We don't want to be single. Single is not helping us. We want to be united, and then and then push our agenda and make life really better for the average African.
Well, some countries are doing well. Rwanda, Mauritius, Botswana, Cape Verde on their own. So they're probably less inclined to think about the one. But a lot of other countries are being left behind. Togo, Liberia, places like that. There's a comment here from Drika says, this man has a vision that is courageous. Our continent is, however, too divided to implement this dream. Keep on making films. The message will eventually solicit positive reaction. What you're talking about is really about thriving, not surviving, but thriving. You want Africa to thrive. That's I think the key here. Well, unfortunately, we're going to run out of time now that we've got a decent connection. So I do want to bring one more topic up because I'm going to have to leave shortly to get to the War College for my consulting services. But so before we leave, I'm going to make this offer. Let's continue this conversation in another. That's why I call it an Indaba Conversation with Chris. It's not an interview. We're having a conversation. Let's pick it up and we'll do it again. And we'll talk more about this, specifically about the film. And I'd like to talk about your experiences, where you've traveled, who you've talked to, who you've engaged. Let's do that and focus on your film next time when we have a chance with a better connection, of which we seem to have a pretty good connection right now, ironically. But I did want to leave before one thing that I did want to cover very quickly is that one of the reasons for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, of course, is that Africa has the worst regional trade on the planet. It's the lowest intra-regional trade of any region. I mean, even worse than, well, I think maybe the Pacific region is maybe a little lower, but Africa is very low. Almost no trade between Africa. For instance, if you want to ship a container from Mombasa to Durban, it takes 3 weeks to get there, and you can ship one from China to Durban. It gets there in less than a week, and it costs 1/3 or a quarter of the price. And also, that's one of the challenges. African economies. Now, part of that's a legacy of colonialism. A lot of economies weren't set up to interact sideways or around themselves, but rather to get to the ports and ship stuff back to the metropoles in France and the UK and Portugal and places like that. But intra-African trade is a real challenge, and that's a major driving factor for having this agreement. And that's really one of the things that those who envision it want to improve. Has that been a topic you've discussed with in your filmmaking thus far, the concept of increasing trade amongst African countries? I think it is, based on what you've said.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean...
we got a data connection problem again. All right. Well, I'm going to have to depart. So let me do this. I'm going to put David in the waiting room, and we're going to thank him because the connection's just not working out now. So I've got to get ready to go. So David, you're probably not watching right now, but I put you in the waiting room because, but you should be able to hear me still there. I've got to get out of here now. We've We had to start late, rescheduling, and then we've had these data connection problems. What I'll do is I'll go through this interview and I will edit it heavily to take all the data problems out of there, and then I'll put it up. But I'm very busy today. I won't be finished working until about 10 or 11 tonight from my obligations. So I might not get to tonight, but I'll try to get to it, if not tonight, tomorrow. And I'll get this loaded up as a separate interview and take the key points out of it so it's watchable, because I know it's very difficult for viewers to watch. Anyway, so we'll get David back on the program, and when we get him back on the program, what we'll do is we'll talk about his film specifically, because that's what we're supposed to today, but we really didn't get a chance to get into that because of the data connections. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, thank you all so much. If you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, please become one. For those who showed up here like Adrikas, thank you for your comment, and others. I appreciate it. And folks, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream right here and thank David Akwara for coming on, an award-winning filmmaker from Nigeria. I'm curious to hear more about his filmmaking experience and about The Rise, which is the series of films he's put together about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So there you have it, folks. Thanks a lot. I'll be back later on for an unannounced live stream sometime midday here in the East Coast of the United States, or early evening in South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia. Just stay tuned for it. Hopefully you have all notifications set on your account, and then you'll be able to find out about it. We'll talk more about this and some other topics. Thanks a lot, everybody. Catch you later. And again, my apologies for the data connections, but I don't control the internet service providers or the cables that come out of Africa or float across the U.S. But thank you so much to David, and we'll get David back on here because technology has let us down, and that's not fair to David or to the viewing audience. So we're going to fix that with another stream. Okay, folks, thanks a lot. Appreciate you being here, and I'll catch you later today. Cheers, everyone.